Peace, my people. Welcome to Historican. Today we're joined by Fernando Ponce Laspina, a community leader, educator, activist, and cultural organizer in the South Bronx. Born in Ponce, Puerto Rico, he came to New York in 1970 and after a turbulent youth, transformed his life through education, earning multiple college degrees and dedicating himself to service and to the people. Ponce has taught at Hostels Community College, directed after-school programs for NYCHA, and found youth sports leagues that continue to provide positive alternatives for young people. He is the executive director of El Maestro Cultural and Educational Center, a nonprofit that preserves Puerto Rican culture through athletics, arts, and education. He also left the mark, his imprint, on Puerto Rican history. On October 25th, 1977, Ponce was among the activists who occupied the Statue of Liberty for 8 hours, stamping the Puerto Rican flag on her forehead to demand the release of nationalist prisoners. A writer, organizer, and cultural guardian, Ponce has spent decades building spaces that honor Puerto Rican identity while mentoring the next generation and all that follow. The iconic statement that he made epitomized the pride and warrior spirit of our Puerto Rican people. Let's give it up for Ponce Laspina.
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be in your program. Thank you very much. It's very needed so the young ones will learn, what we go through and pass it on. So me, I have to say, it was rough in my island, coming from my island, my hometown Ponce to here, because it was my father and mother plus 17 children. Some of them or the others one had come before, but during the time that I got here in 1970, it was like between 10 to 12 young ones, younger than me, younger than the 15. I was the last one to leave the island. I was 15, and my brother Pete, that just passed not too long ago, he was 14, and we stood for 6 months, not by ourselves, with the neighbors and family members over there. So we came here in 1970, no English, no nothing. So it was very, very rough coming up, going to school, not knowing the language, uh, situations, bullying and stuff like that. That basically like pushed us that we didn't want to be here. And at the end, we had to end up joining some of the groups. For us, one group in particular, that it was a group that's still around called the Sabbath Calls, because they were more Puerto Ricans in that group. They were more from our neighborhood, and some of them they were in the club or the gang because the same situation that I'm going through, that I have been through before, segregation and stuff like that. So I end up, and my other younger brother, we end up being members of the Savage Cause, and then it took us from members to leaders in the Savage Cause.
I think a lot of times when people join affiliations and gangs and groups, is really because of needing defense, needing some type of way of being comfortable, right? Can you describe the turning point that helped you leave the gang life behind and kind of like pursuing education and then getting all your degrees?
Well, basically, growing up in New York, in particular the Bronx, Savage Coast was like, at one point, the biggest gang in New York. Of course, we shared with other gangs, brother clubs like Nomads, Black Space, and other groups. So it was nothing about hate from one group in particular, because we also had situations with Puerto Ricans that were here that they call themselves New Yorkers, and they treat us Puerto Ricans like we're not from here. That's a different thing. But the gang situation when that took me to Rikers Island. And being in Rikers Island is really when I started learning about my history. Because growing up in Puerto Rico, I didn't know my history. I didn't know what was going on, situations that happened in Ponce or throughout the island. I didn't know. I didn't know like who was the father of the country. I didn't know the meanings of flags and stuff like that. And being in jail, that's when I find out what was going on, why Puerto Ricans were here, the immigration and stuff like that, because of lack of work in Puerto Rico, living conditions and stuff like that. So that's when I started learning more about Puerto Rico. And then I learned about political prisoners here from that were here for many, many, many years. And some of them, like a brother called Martin Sostre out of Buffalo, had a bookstore, and they framed him and all that. And his case was real big here. And I learned about Angela Davis, and I learned about Asata Shakur. And, so it was just that for all Puerto Ricans. Basically, a lot of the groups, from the Young Lords to the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party to the Black Panthers and other Chicano groups and all that. This is what's going on in the 70s. In the 70s, all jails are full of not only gang members, but a lot of people are associated with different political groups. So this is when I learned, that, for example, we didn't have no bilingual counselors, we didn't have the right to use the TV to listen to or see a Latino program, or the radio to listen to salsa and all that. So we had to fight for all these things. And the situation where we were when we come out to be fed, that they was putting all the groups, I don't want to get into particular groups, putting things in our food because you have food that they would not eat. So it put us into a situation that we have to fight for our rights and get together with other groups. But also, we have a culture. We have a culture, for example, that you eat pigs and you eat other things that other people don't eat. So we have to respect them, but you gotta respect our culture, our history. That we speak Spanish, and we like to talk a lot, and we use the hands, and we listen to different music, stuff like that. So we started creating organizations, meeting, and getting things together. But the turning point of me getting out of the gang is basically the time that I go to court, and I see my mother crying. And that's when I think about, this is a mother that took care of us, 17 children, work work for us all her life, and to make us good men and women. And I said she don't deserve for me to be in again and get arrested for either killing somebody or hurting somebody. So that's when I said no more for me, and I'm just gonna come home and start working with the youth and try to create a different organization to help other kids.
Thank you for mentioning Asada. Rest in peace. She just passed away.
Yes.
And I think that looking at her story, looking at what you're saying, it's crazy what has gone on for so many years. I think that when speaking to our people, right, black and brown, I think that it's very important to understand we are who we are and proud of it, but we are based off of the creation of certain things that were put in, like the food. And I've heard that so many times reading the Black Panther books, and so many things that have happened from when people are inside and they feel like you're a threat, them poisoning your food, them putting things together that, right, we're going to go into a different side, right, that came from possibly you being inside and then gaining that activist warrior spirit, right, that heart. So by all means, uh, let's continue the conversation.
Okay, so one of the things that I learned is just like where I was coming from. Okay, I come from Puerto Rico. I speak Spanish. I'm Puerto Rican, but look at the connections that Puerto Rico have with many other countries, and look at our history that we have great leaders. Okay, in the music, in the sports, in politics. And especially for me, coming out from Ponce, being born on March 21, 1955, in a commemoration of what is called the Ponce Massacre, where 21 people got killed, defenseless, no weapons or whatever, got killed in a peaceful demonstration in Ponce. And I never heard of that. And I never heard of who the father of our country, Dr. Ramon Emeterio Betances, was, uh, or who Dr. Pedro Albizu Campos was, or a person from my hometown. So this is when I started learning that Pedro Albizu Campos, first Latino, graduated from Harvard and doctor's degrees and 6, 7 languages. And Dr. Ramon Emeterio Betances called the Antillian because he fought against the Spaniards and he wanted the Antillians to be for the Antilles. And both of them live here in New York City. And this is where, for example, in the Bronx, you see schools and you see buildings named after both of them. So I took, I was very proud to learn about this. But the thing is that I thought that the same way that I didn't know, it had to be millions of people in Puerto Rico that didn't know these things either. So it took me to go to jail to learn these things when these things should have been taught in school in Puerto Rico. And so I learned that, and I heard so many names and all that. And I didn't know. Really didn't know that thinking and talking about them in jail, that I was gonna come home and be in the campaign to free the Puerto Rican nationalists, Lolita Lebron, Rafael Cáncer Miranda, Irving Flores, Oscar Collazo, Andrés Figueroa. I didn't know. And I got involved and I got to meet all of them. And I became very close to them, driving them around, being security for them, being a driver for them. And this is how I molded myself to learn my history. And so I went through a lot and persecution, and it was hard for me to get a job. And especially, I don't know if I'm jumping, but after the takeover of the Statue of Liberty, that one of our demands, it was that we have a brother that he was about to die in jail, Andres Figueroa Cordero. He lost one of the kidneys in jail because they didn't take care of him. And also for Asata Shakur, that she was being raped in New Jersey, in the New Jersey jail and all that. And glad that then later on she escaped and she ended up going to Cuba and being free until she passed. So this is some of the experiences and so far our demands. And we also make clear and we learn in the process that that this country is not our enemy. The white people, they're not our enemy. It's the system. The people behind all these politics that made those decisions in 1950, 1954, to put in the 1940s, putting our young people forced to go into the World War One or two, and if they would not go, they send them to Tallahassee, Florida, and many of young brothers disappeared. They died. They got killed, and so this is some of the stuff that changed my life, and nothing personal. Like I have another brother. He spent 22 and a half years in the army. I have a nephew. He spent about 20 years also in the army. I have family members that are in the police department, Navy, Marines, and all that. So it's a situation that we don't hate. We don't hate other people. We have very good contacts with different organizations, including white people, because at one point they try to make it look like we hate white people and we hate the American flag and all that. No, it's not like that. We respect you, but you also have to respect, that we have a flag, that we speak different, we have different culture.
Thank you so much for that, Senora Laspina. I just want to share real quick too that I feel so enriched by hearing your story, especially because you're from Ponce. My father is from Ponce as well,
Oh,
and my grandfather was at the Ponce massacre when it happened. So, and I love how you're saying that it's so important to share these stories, especially for the next generation. Like how you said you learned your history in jail, but it should have been available to you even
boy.
outside of jail, and it's so important. So to to kind of bring it back to and getting into the occupation of the Statue of Liberty, we've read about it, but can you share about what led to that, what sparked it, to tell the younger generation who may have never heard about what happened in that year,
Yes.
1977?
The organization here that we was an organization called the Committee to Free the Puerto Rican Nationalists, that they have been in jail for 20 something years. But the other thing is that there was a lot of Puerto Ricans fighting for the independence of Puerto Rico in Puerto Rico, and they got arrested and they were brought here to the United States. You know, including like Blanca Canales, that is the one that declares the Republic in Jayuya in 1950, and many other women and men from Puerto Rico. So it was an event basically to call out on the attention that we had one particular brother, Andres Figueroa Cordero, that he was dying in jail, that they was expecting him to die in the next few weeks. And the takeover basically forced him to let him go, and then he survived for about a year and a half, and he was able to come to New York. He was able to go to Nicaragua, Cuba, and many other countries. And he survived until maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and all that, instead of just dying, in 2 weeks in jail. As I mentioned before, one of our strong demand was also there. It was also to call the attention of what was going on with Assata Shakur and many other political prisoners at that time. But of course, first demand, it was that we had the right to for independence, to have a free nation. And when we call that, is not again that we are that we not go, that we cannot be associated with the United States and all that, but it will have to be something that and is equal, and that the United States or any other government do whatever they want with Puerto Rico, as it has happened until now.
What was it like climbing into the crown and raising the Puerto Rican flag over that? Because that's an iconic image. You can share
Okay.
what that felt like for you.
Yeah,
being
well,
able to-
I have to say that it was a group of 30 people, Puerto Ricans, Latinos, or even Japanese. Yuri Yokiyama, a famous leader in the Vietnam War, and all that. She passed not too long ago. There was black, white people there, different organizations, student leaders, and all that. So it was 30 of us. Two of them, they were infiltrators. They were infiltrators. Okay. With the names are out there: Freddie Mendez, Miguel Rodriguez. It was all over the newspapers and all that. And I was part of the group because Statue of Liberty is a big monument. So it was a small group to go on top of the crown and put the flag. I was not up there. I was in the bottom, making sure that everybody gets out, everybody out, make sure that we change the locks and all that, and make sure that nobody comes in. Of course, in case that they try to force them. So like I said, we changed up all the different gates and made sure that all the doors and whatever, they were safe and all that for people not to come in. And basically, we spent about 9 hours there until they came to get us. The SWAT team was mobilized, all kind of different groups from the police and all that. And at the end, they took us out peacefully. There was no basically confrontation there, physical confrontation. We just wanted to have a peaceful demonstration of what was going on, not only in Puerto Rico but here, and also part of the demand, for example, it was for our Chicano brothers that was going, what was going on here with them, and also community leaders in Puerto Rico from the labor of movement that had disappeared by the government in Puerto Rico at that time, and we was claiming for justice.
How beautiful was it around in that time with having people from different organizations, different backgrounds, Black people, Chicanos, Puerto Ricans, coming together, white people coming together to work for one common cause?
Well, Puerto Rico always been in solidarity with all kind of movement here, in particular in New York, that people call the melting pot. And here we have learned to work with so many groups when they need us, but also when we need them, they there. And I had the opportunity to be what people call a student leader at a Hostos Community College, participating in the takeover also in Hostos Community College, being arrested to save the college. It gave me like a hand up to learn how to deal with other groups from different backgrounds, different religions, and even with my broken English or whatever we call it, that we could understand. Because once they see you in the front, that you there when they call you, when there's something going on, that they're crossing a college, for example, at that time, that we there, that there's something happening with factory workers, we there. Back in the days when they tried to close our Lincoln Hospital, we there. So, all different colors, and this is how we learn. Like every month we are there in the picket line. So people start learning, who you are, and you also start learning who they are.
I think what's so beautiful about our people, and especially the Puerto Rican people, is that small island, right? But
Yes.
having such a great impact. Some of us were talking recently about, Bad Bunny. He's going to perform at the Super Bowl and during a halftime show on one of the biggest
Right.
stages in the world. Some of our historical figures, right? Even Pedro Albizu Campos and impact that he had, even with the Irish people. How do you view what you guys did almost 50 years ago and the impact that that had on society?
Well, I think the impact was that we showed the people here and we showed the people in Puerto Rico throughout the world, because the case of the Statue of Liberty, that page of the Statue of Liberty with the Puerto Rican flag, it was internationally seen in every newspaper and all that, and showed that we have courage and that we was willing to sacrifice. That yes, we hear and we respect and all that, but you're not respecting us. You're not respecting us, and we're gonna do things that definitely gonna call the attention, and that people gonna clap for what we did. Bad Bunny, for example, he brought it back. I mean, we always do things and all that, but it created a big impact. Him doing this because he's a big star right now. I don't want to say, well, in Puerto Rico, there's no question about it. Maybe Latin America, I don't know, but people are afraid of him, of what he's doing and all that. But I'd say I just came from the island. Basically, everybody talks about Bad Bunny, political people, all different cultural groups. It's Bad Bunny. He's the person right now that he's like the one target, even for people here that don't understand or whatever. I would not say that they don't want us, they don't like us, and all that. It's just that I think a lot of them, they still don't know us. But I think it has been a big impact, and how we did it, uh, peaceful, and that the young people feel proud, and they still feel proud that this thing happened, and that we were in accordance or in solidarity with many other groups, not just the Puerto Rican community.
I got to tell you, Senor Ponce, the fact, yes, Bad Bunny is the biggest artist right now. There would not be a Bad Bunny if there weren't people like you. And I think that it's important to know Black and Brown. A lot of times, it is scripted, where the role models that we look up to are not supposed to be good people. They're not supposed to be heroic.
Yeah.
Even when you look at the superhero movies and all the things, right? There are very few Latinos. I got to tell you that you are more than heroic without the cape. You never needed a cape. Um, and I love the fact that the mixture of people that did occupy the Statue of Liberty at that time says so much about the power of the message of what it is that was out there, and you sending that to the diaspora and to the world, not only Puerto Rico. The fact that you mentioned Asada, the fact that you mentioned the Chicanos, so it wasn't a fight just because it was a Puerto Rican flag, because the Puerto Rican flag was there and
Yes.
that represented, right? But at the same time, it speaks for the power, the strength behind the fact it's not only about our people, it's about everybody, but we're representing our people.
And
Right?
and one thing also that we take very high pride to have that flag there, because that flag was born here in New York City by our nationalist brother back in the 1890s. So that flag was born here. And you see that flag, like for example, in the National Puerto Rican Day Parade, and basically every major event, you see it there. When they did declare here, or Roberto Clemente Day, right? Because what Roberto Clemente did not only for us, but for the world. So that flag represents us, and that was the best symbol that we could have at that time there.
I love it. For years there has been a misrepresentation, right, of who put the flag there. A lot of times it was said that the young lords put the flag there, but at the same time, to know the story behind it, and Sir Ponce Laspina was the one that was there that was doing it right, and it wasn't necessarily just a young lord thing. The fact that now the truth is being spoken out. It's not just, it just wasn't the young lords that were just fighting. It just wasn't the Black Panthers, Puerto Rican nationalists, right? Everybody was involved in some type of fight at that time. But this particular movement, this particular putting the flag on top of the forehead, which I gotta say, if that ain't the most badass type of thing to do, you know what I mean? Like to take something that. So, can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, I just want to correct that at that time in 1977, there was no John Lord's organization around, but there were ex-John Lord's leaders there, like Richie Perez, Mickey Melendez, and other people, just like there were people from the Nationalist Party on different groups there. So this is why it's called the Committee to Free the Five Puerto Rican Nations, New York City chapter, because they are chapters all over. So because when you say the John Laws, then it's something, you look at it in 1977, the John Laws have disappeared as an organization. But there's still a lot of guys out there that they were members of the John Laws, of the Nationalist Party, of the different organizations. But it was just like one fist together of different groups and different colors, and Puerto Rico Solidarity Committee was there, and so many other groups and all that. And at the end, it turned out that no matter what, we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. That it was to call attention of what was going on, for the things that I said before, and nobody got hurt, and we just moved on and to the next thing and keep working in the community. At that time, like I mentioned before, they're saving on Hostos Community College, they're saving on Lincoln Hospital, and creating many other organizations that were struggling to survive at that time.
I love it. I love it. Especially we all fingers in one hand. So
Yeah.
let's talk about your community work. You founded a sports league, cultured events, and youth programs. Why has giving back to the Bronx community been so central to your life's work? Why is that so important to you?
Yeah, well, first when I came home in 1976 out of my recreational facility, I came to live in this community in the South Bronx, and I live in the same building, the same blocks in 1976. So buildings going down, burned down, and people moving out. So I created an organization called Caribe Village, and the idea was to work with the community about housing, jobs, taking care of the kids to be safe in the streets and all that. Drugs always been there, but let's keep the drugs out of this block. And also giving back to to the brothers that are left behind, people in the institutions. So we started getting together with the families of people that were back, helping out to take care of them financially. I started visiting a lot of these institutions like Sing Sing, Greenhaven, Fishkill, Bedford Hills, and started campaigning for brothers that were and sisters that were doing like life in jail and all that because they were the legal representation was not the right one and all that. I went through that. I went through how to bad legal representation, and you know, it's another story. But we started our organization, and we started during those years. We really didn't ask for a permit to close the street. We just closed the street, and we opened the pump, and the kids could play, and we took care of them. Get a basketball court, do a festival, bring music. And it happens that, for example, that event for 1976 that we call El Grito de Lares, the cry for Lares, when our first republic was on declared in September 23rd, 1868. So we've been doing this event right now in this street for 49 years with a lot of famous artists, a lot of DJs and all that, where people come and they eat here, they do barbecues and whatever. And it's a great event. It's safe, a safe event where your kids could come and ride the bike and all the comes right, read poetry and all that. So that's the first organization that I really created. And from there, we created a softball team called Patriotas, Patriots, that is 44 years old, right? And we created the Roberto Clemente Softball League, and we created the Juan Ivo Gonzalez Little League, and then the biggest organizations, El Maestro Inc., where it was an idea that I had in jail, reading about all the famous boxers coming out of Puerto Rico, in particular some that I wanted to meet from Ponce. And basically, when I come home, I meet them. And I said, I think that the best thing to keep the kids out of the streets, out of the gangs and all that, is for them to have a center where they could do all these things, whether music, poetry, education. People come and speak to them about their history. Boxing, not just to become professional boxers, but to learn how to defend themselves. Because that, for example, even when I was in the gangs or even in jail, I saw, big guys and all that. They couldn't fight. They couldn't fight. They couldn't defend themselves. And not only that, the sad part, I also saw a lot of young ones that they couldn't defend. I want to be cruel, they couldn't defend themselves. And this is where I saw people being sodomized, you know. I saw, for example, in El Myra Correctional Facility, that the warden of El Myra facility, El Myra Correctional Facility, the warden, he was a grand dragon from the KKK. And I saw brothers, my color, Hispanic, being burned in the cells because we were together with the black people, and the struggles in Arica. I knew a lot of survivors from Arica and all that. So this is why I said we have to learn how to learn how to defend ourselves, not only with the hands, but also with our brains, with our head. We need to go to school, and I keep telling them, I was a good student, but once I go in jail, I have to end up with a GED. I have to do factory work, but I end up because of my sacrifice and my mother and my older brothers, I end up with a master's degree. So I tell them, if I did it, you could do it. There's a lot of opportunities out here, especially now. There's more, yeah, it's tough, but we have more opportunity than we have in the 70s. Because in the 70s, we don't have no computers, we don't have no laptop, we don't have bilingual education and all that. And, so that's my message.
You're just coming back from Puerto Rico, right?
Yes.
Because of Grito de Lares. So, and I know that you kind of touched upon it, but can you tell us about the reasoning behind that, right? And how it has expanded, right? Because it came from a seed of an idea and now has become the yearly situation that's happening.
Yes. Well, like I said before, I never knew what Lares was. I didn't even know what Ponce was. So I learned this in jail, and I learned about Betances, and I learned about the struggle in the Caribbean for free emancipation, free the slaves and all that. A flag that is similar to the Dominican Republic. So, for example, when I created the Patriota softball team, our colors are red, white, and blue. That represents the red, white, and blue flag, but also could represent the Dominicans. Because Dr. Ramon Meteri Betances, the father of the country, his father was Dominican, and the mother was Puerto Rican. And that's why our first flag, the latest flag, and the Dominican, they look very, very similar. So I learned that also, sharing time through the sports. I traveled to Dominican Republic 4 times to play. So I spoke to them and whatever, and we share a lot of things. Not only in New York City, but because you want to see also the Dominicans in Dominican Republic, just like you want to see the Puerto Rican in Puerto Rico. So because I did this event, the Grito de Lares, 49 years ago, so it's a traditional thing that people come and want to see this event. But I had never been in Lares on an event, which I knew that a lot of great leaders were there and all that. And so I'm going to Puerto Rico now, invited to make 6 presentations from my humble books. And I'm called and sent a message that I was going to be one of the guest speakers in Lares on the 23rd. It not only amazing, but I was shocked. I thought about my mother in particular, my father, but especially my mother, that she would have been proud to see me there. Because I've been recognized because what I have done here, and the people in Puerto Rico recognize that. I didn't know what the hell to say. And there's a tree in Lares. I don't know how to call it. No, in Spanish it's tamarindo. Tamarind. So there's a tree there that was planted there in 1927 by Dr. Pedro Albizu Campos, which is the president of the Nationalist Party. And I see every year that they do these events there, and all the greatest leaders, they speak there. So now you're calling me to speak there. And there's about 500 people there. And it was amazing. It was great. I never heard our national anthem sang so many times, like a date. We were there for 2 days, 2 different events. Because before on the September 22nd, they do a show, what they call an obra, about the Grito de Lares, how they went and all that, where they show how they fight against the Spaniards for freedom, to free the slaves and all that. There were about 500 people there. And then the Grito de Lares on the 23rd, there's about 500 or more. And like every 1 hour, they singing the national anthem. So they sang like on Tuesday, I heard the national anthem like maybe 5 or 6 times. The 23rd, because our group, the Puerto Rican Nationalist Party, we go to the cemetery and pay tribute to the people that died. So we also sing it there. When we get there and when we leave there, and then we go to the church, and then there's a big mass, and in the church you listen to the anthem about 2 times, and then you come out, and there's about 3 more times. And so it's an experience that I cannot express. It's a big experience. And to finish on that point, I end up going to places that I've never been before. I passed through, but never been before, like San Juan. People pass through San Juan, but I spoke in the Ateneo. The Ateneo is a place where basically all the big lawyers and teachers, professors got to speak, and I got to speak there. And I went to Arecibo, and I went to Ceiba, and I went to Tuado, and I went to Macau. And I had so many events that at one point, I think it was on Friday, I had to go to 3 different places. And by the 3rd place, I already had lost my voice. But it was a great thing. The book did very, very well. People that I knew through Facebook, and people that heard because other people and all that wanted to meet me, people that older than me, a few people there like 85, 86 years old, a lot of them good writers. I had read the books and all that, and they wanted to meet me because they said that they love my book. So it was a great experience. It's one of the biggest experiences I ever had.
So you mentioned your books. Can you tell us what motivated you to write your autobiographies and books on Puerto Rican history?
I never thought that I was going to write a book or anything. I just, when you're in jail, you have to do push-ups, because if you keep eating whatever garbage they're giving you there, you're not gonna be able to fit through the door when they said you could go home, right? So you do a lot of push-ups, you get into the sports, whether it's swimming, baseball, basketball, whatever. And I did all that, but at night I used to like write little things and all that, and in a book, and I saved it and I put it away. When I came home, I had like the letters that my mother wrote, people that wrote for me from the streets, like gang members, friends, supporting me. I didn't throw it away. So I put it in a box and all that. And my mother, she always wanted me to be a lawyer. And then after I got arrested, it was gone. So, but I did promise my mother, I'm gonna be somebody. I'm gonna be somebody. I'm gonna give you the best of me for all the good things that you have done for me and my brothers and sisters. So, like I'm saying, 1976, and then I got so busy with everything that I do with organizations. I was at the park with the Little League and the softball like 7 days a week, and then going to college, it wasn't easy. But then I decided I want to do something. I want to do a book. And it happened that I spoke to a few friends that I have that they wrote books and all that. I have to say the truth. Nobody helped me. So a good friend of mine that moved to Puerto Rico just now. If I speak bad English, forget about him with the Spanish. You don't speak Spanish. Camilo Mato. So I said, let's do this book because I don't know much about the computer. So we did a book in Spanish called My Memories, My Roots, and the book is doing great. But because I write and read more Spanish. But then because of the people that grew up with me and the children of those people that grew up with me, they wanted an English book. So we did My Memories, My Roots, which is this book, and it's basically my biography, and it's doing very well. And I say, like during the time I'm in jail, I remember the locations that we were at, places that we visited, the different divisions and all that. And I started talking about those things. So when people read the book and all that, say, oh, I remember this person, I remember this community, I remember this incident. Like I speak about the statue. Oh, yes, I remember that. The Lincoln Hospital, the Young Lords, the Puerto Rican Day Parade, how hard it was at the beginning to have that parade, how big this parade had become, that is basically the biggest parade in United States, probably the world, you know? And it was friends that I met afterwards that did it, and so that's how it took place. And then it just kept me moving to write other books about people that I have met in the struggle.
So something I want to ask you though is, what do you hope future generations take from your story, from the streets of the Bronx to the crown of the Statue of Liberty, from Ponce, Puerto Rico? What do you want them to? What do you want the next generation to take from your story?
I always think that we got to be respectful. I think that the generation now, they have to respect. They want respect. They have to respect. It's sad when you see young people like pushing older people, not understanding them for whatever reasons. Like pushing people that you see they're homeless or they have different mental issues and all that. The bullying. I hate bullying. I seen it. I have a group of kids that come to my place because they get beat up in the street or they get beat up in schools or in the building. It's sad when I have to welcome and help 2 or 3 kids that are autistic, and the parents come to bring them to me because they need help. And it really breaks my heart to see these things. Um, so we learn how to deal with them, just like we learn how to deal with people that don't have something to eat, but we could get it and we could provide it for them. It takes me away from my house maybe an hour, 2 or 3 hours. Go get things in my van and whatever, and get some of my guys to help me. But this is what we have to do. We cannot count in the police departments on the elected officials to do this and that. They don't. Like elected officials, they give out food, and then when you go, you got to sign a paper. It's basically a vote that they want to get when they're running I'm not running for nothing. So we do this for them. And I have people that now, like every Friday, I have a pastor, a good friend of mine from the community. He's out there giving out clothes, food, and all that. In the winter, this is what we do. We collect winter clothes, not just cold, winter clothes. And we give it out 1 or 2 weeks, we're giving out clothes. And then Three Kings come in January. We do the Three Kings Day to show our kids the culture and history. We always make sure that we bring what people call famous people, famous boxers, musicians, all that, so they could meet them and that they could say, wow, I met so and so and so. And so, so and so. We tell them just like I say to them. I'm not afraid of telling them that I was in jail, that I was a gang member. But look, I did this, and this is what I got now. So some of them, they come, wow, you wrote that book. Yes, and I'm writing another. Like now, you was in Puerto Rico? What? You had 6 presentations? Yes, and it's about sacrifice. It's about sacrifice. Like the boxers, they gotta run before going to the gym. You cannot get everything in the train that you do. You gotta run. During the weekend that the gym is closed, you gotta go run, walk, do exercise, and all that. Always like the little ones, respect your mommy and daddy. You want to be in the gym, they either paying the dues or they're making the sacrifice to bring you here. You want a phone, you want new clothes and all that. A lot of these families, you guys know, they come from single parents' house. A lot of them females, mothers that the father is not around, or a few fathers that they there and the mothers are not around. So I had experienced this, and I'm not afraid, to talk about this. At least in my community, because the 50 plus year in this community, you know, had taught me how my community is.
We just thank you for all your years of service to the community, your sacrifices that you've made. We honor you and we give you all the reverence, and we just appreciate you for again taking the time out to speak with us and to share your story. But even before we go, though, I wanted to touch again on, you have an event coming up in November. If you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, November 1st, we're doing the 75th anniversary of the Puerto Rican nationalist movement in Puerto Rico and New York City. And that's also 7 o'clock. On that day, we have a cultural group called Grupo Maestro, and we have the famous Dr. Drum Bombayo. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you guys for having me, George, Joseph.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, guys.